Good afternoon, ma'am. Hi, I'm Deepti from Curious Times, and we want to welcome you this Teachers' Day on Curious Times for this special edition of Curious Times Teachers Leading Through the Crisis and Reimagining the Future of Education. So, a very warm welcome over here, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Deepti, and really happy to know the kind of work you're doing, the initiatives you're taking. Teachers need to be recognized once again. I think the way they used to be. In our culture, we've always believed Guru as someone very, very special, even more important than God Himself. I think we need to somewhere bring that back because that's the kind of work that teachers have been really doing across, I think, schools globally.
Right. Absolutely. And ma'am, just give us like maybe a few lines on your school and your own self.
So, to talk about GEMS International School, Gurgaon, this is part of the GEMS Education Group, which is the world's largest K 12 education provider, and led by our chairman, Padma Shri, Mr. Sunny Varki. I think everything about in our school is about the four core values that you see right behind me: excellence, always learning, one team, and most importantly, care. Also, the mission of GEMS education really is to put quality education within the reach of every child. I think we've been really, really working towards this mission globally with so many schools, of course, our own. But other than the schools, the brick and mortar schools, we are also launching GEMS accelerator programs in India now, working very closely with the public as well as private sector in India, working a lot with budget private schools in India to help everyone develop quality education. That's the hallmark of GEMS education. There is really a lot of learning within this organization. Talking about me, I think I have been an educationist for the past 30 years now. Of these, 9 years now with GEMS education. So that is quite literally in my bloodstream pretty much, as you would notice. But the reason is, I think, whatever you do, you're a learner first and foremost. Whatever role you may be, a student, a teacher, a principal, director, whatever, but you are first and foremost a learner in every role, and that continues, and that is lifelong. So the kind of learning that I have got in this organization, the kind of mentors that I have got, and the kind of work that this organization does in education, um, I think is exceptional. I have not seen something of these lines happening anywhere else. Um, there is a lot of good work happening globally in education, but I know that the kind of exposure that one gets as part of this team is really good. Every other day we have meetings with the uh, with the likes of the chairman of OECD, the person who's with John Hattie, who's part of the team, and thinkers of this nature who are globally or members of the project Harvard Zero, with whom we are doing certain projects and so on. So lots of thinking, lots of reimagining, rethinking, unlearning, relearning just goes on continuously. And so everybody becomes, that is the culture. So everybody who becomes part of the system becomes part of that culture, and then it just puts you into a different zone altogether.
Right. Wonderful. Ma'am, actually, we have been working with a few GEMS branches and especially based out of the Middle East. So, we're pretty much aware of all the core values that cut across the organization. So, I'm very glad that we got you also today over here. I'll sort of, come to our topic of, reimagining future and leading to the crisis. Like, we definitely know that we've done wonders during COVID times, and teachers have played a very significant role. And I think for us, it's now the time to think that what was all happening as a part of, a forced call from, COVID, is actually now our opportunity to make, difference and do things differently. So, my first question around that is, ma'am, that there's a lot being talked about technology, which has been a biggest enabler for us to reach children during the period of COVID and ensure the learning continuity at a very, at whatever stage one could do, right? But what you see as the role of education, sorry, the role of technology in the whole teaching learning ecosystem, right? And what do you think, how what will be the role of teachers, going forward?
Okay. Technology is already everywhere. It's call it good, call it bad, or what you will. The fact is, it is here to stay. Whether it is in education or in any, for that matter, any aspect of our lives, it's everywhere. And for education, it was already there. The pandemic made it even more out there. But the one thing, beautiful thing that the pandemic did, apart from so much else, some good, some bad, was that it clarified once and for all that there is no replacing the teacher. Technology, as you put it, is just an enabler, one of the tools in the hands of the teacher. There is really no replacing the teacher. And there is also actually really no replacing the brick and mortar schools. Yes, there is a lot that can be done and should be done using technology in a hybrid mode, which many of us implemented in our schools. I mean, not just GEM schools, but globally, almost all the progressive
Yeah.
schools, even if it was for emergency response for certain schools, and for some who already had it probably in their improvement planning already thought through. So many schools across the globe and in India implemented a lot of hybrid learning during this time. Even education boards reimagined a lot of that could be done. And as we speak, I know that we have a tie-up ongoing with Cambridge on a hybrid recognition for schooling, so that a child who probably is living in an area which doesn't probably have good access to education, but can have internet access and a device, can actually attend a good school from a remote area for 6 days, 5 days of the week, and probably attend school physically twice in the week, which may be possible for those parents to do. Right. So, and there are a lot such children who can benefit from things or aspects like this. Plus, for the first time, I think the pandemic showed people that the classroom could genuinely transcend the idea of space and time. It showed the masses of the community that really some few schools, um, maybe a very small percentage of schools globally, were already looking at this. There were education thinkers, researchers already talking about, since years, people have been talking about education needs to be at the child's pace, and in their own time. Student voice and choice, student agency is critical. That has to be central. We've all been trying to embed differentiated instruction in our own ways, or inclusion in different ways. But then a lot seemed not possible to a lot of people. And using technology a lot more, even if a lot is possible in a physical classroom, and we all do it, but using technology a lot more becomes possible. And some of the task of the teacher, comes in a bit handy. Some tools come in very handy for, a lot of manual labor goes into really ensuring every little detail for each child. A lot of personalized work becomes much easier for the teacher to manage. So their technology definitely plays a role, and we must use it to the fullest. We
Right.
cannot ignore it. So
Right.
we are living with it, and but then it's a demon. So we better
Right,
beware, not be
right,
sucked in completely by it.
right. Yeah. Uh, Absolutely agree. And, I think some wonderful takeaways from that. My next question is around, what role can teachers, we know the pressures of, what exists on today's children, especially in, our post-pandemic also, so to say. Um, what role can teachers play in terms of, providing mental well-being to children? Like, is there a role that can teachers step in and, provide that? Because as we reimagining education as a process, that's a place where children stay for 8 hours in a day. Like, what can teachers do about it?
I have been, and I love this question first and foremost. Mental health and well-being should have always been, and now even more so, should be, or social emotional learning, as we've been calling it in schools for years together, should be in mainstream of education. People have talked about life skills lessons and so on and so forth. That effort has been on since a while, but it still remains on the sidelines. Even if there are things like life skills, or maybe a counselor or some counselors, or some form of inclusion, or some kind of effort towards mental health and well-being being done in a school, it is always on the periphery somehow, while actually that should be the center. Even if you have uh, things around mental health or emotional intelligence or resilience quotients and so on included in a child's what CBSE calls a holistic progress card now, or report card, as was the common terminology used, a rather very judgmental sort of a thing. Even if things are included in there, the parent tends to overlook it and look at the so-called core subjects, where the grades, or that children are not really a collection of percentages, and we need to stop looking at them as such. Only teachers can make it happen. Parents want a lot for their children. Everybody has a whole lot of expectations. As school managements, we have expectations from the system. Teachers, we have expectations from teachers. Teachers have expectations from children. Parents have expectations from schools. Everybody has expectations of each other. Lots and lots and lots of expectations. But somewhere, I think there's a lot of defensive teaching and defensive work going around just for the heck of meeting these expectations. What if we just change this and start expecting for people? For example, as a teacher, what if I start expecting not that my children perform well, but, and that can be an outcome, of course, but for my children, is there sufficient student agency? Is there sufficient opportunity for student co-agency? Are they being heard? Are they being able to question the status quo? Are they being able to define what they would like, how they would like the learning process to be? Are they being able to create value
Right,
with their own ways? Are they getting sufficient opportunity to collaborate? Similarly, our parents, for parents, if I have this expectation, are they getting the opportunity to really see the kind of learning that matters and the kind of learning that is really supporting their child in the longer run? Are they getting sufficient clarity on what the future potentially may look like, and therefore what are we really today preparing the children for? So that, I think, if we just turn the table around a little on expectation, it will transform, and teachers can do a major role.
right, right, right. I think you wonderfully put it, because it's important that, I mean, you at this senior level, senior leadership can think like that. So I'm sure it's something organization wide how you believe it, and then obviously it can pass on to the teachers, and
Yeah,
from where
and for,
it's
sorry,
transcends to
just
the parents.
adding, even as the management, as maybe a head of school, even for someone like me, or for any head of school or any member of the senior leadership team of the school, it's very critical to see, are the teachers well provided for also.
Right,
Again, expecting of the teachers, know what is there for the teachers in this entire system.
right,
Are they
right, right,
sufficiently taken care of? And it
right,
doesn't mean monetary care.
right,
Is the culture one where they feel respected, where they feel important, where they feel you have my back? I can go ahead and I can try this new idea in my class, and yeah, my leader has my back there. So that is very, very critical. And if we are able to do that, the rest will happen.
right. So, ma'am, my next question is around, uh, so you briefly touched upon, the roles that one can play in, teachers can play in terms of counseling and everything. One of the last questions I would rather say is around the role of, what we're saying, ed tech, and the role of what coaching classes, because it's been seen that, it is almost a parallel school, or there is a supplementary education that's happening around. So what are your views on that part of it? Like, are they needed? What should they address? What should schools address? Like, because already somebody is studying for 8 hours in a day, and then, there's another 3 4 hours. So, how does that all add up?
I think high time that parents start to realize the kind of poison that additional coaching has always been. It has really been the poison in the system. I may be probably using words which are very, very radical in nature, but the whole point is that we really, and now it's no longer just something to do, but it's like an urgent, essential need now, that we raise a radically compassionate generation of learners. Now, for children to be thinking individuals for anything that they do, they need to be taught the value of their own self, and they need to genuinely develop holistically, rather than a sort of lip service being offered around holistic development, which has gone on for years and years. At the end of the day, come grade till grade 8, parents are still open to things. Come grade 9, and now even 8, with the maybe the board exam rumor on. So the parents suddenly start feeling, okay, career, okay, now which college? So if the parent has this clarity that 5 years down the line, the kind of careers that I'm thinking about may completely transform, the kind of college applications that I'm thinking about will not really look at just some scoreboard, but will look at a whole persona, that really needs to happen on an urgent basis. While marks are also important, so much more is also important. It really is painful to see so many parents, just especially after the CUET, um, it has only increased. It's painful to see so many parents just pulling their children out of formal schooling and just putting them into coaching institutes and getting dummy attendance from so many, unfortunately, schools do exist where they get it. So this has to change, and I think we all need to come together to make it happen. There is a need of awareness. Eventually, it hurts the child. Today, information is available at the click of a button. So we are not just teaching not only for knowledge. We already long back started teaching for knowledge, skills, and understanding all the KSUs. Today, we know maybe a few years down the line that information is going to be maybe a chip in the head, not just a click of a button. Then what are we teaching them KSUs only for? We need to be able to help them build what OECD calls transformative competencies. Those
Right.
transformative competencies will only come when they are able to utilize those aspects to be able to, with emotional intelligence, with a calm demeanor, balance things out, uh, talk through tensions, find solutions, have the ability to innovate and problem solve. Um,
Right.
that can only happen through proper formal schooling systems, which genuinely mainstream mental health and well-being, social emotional
Right. Right.
intelligence.
Right. Ma'am, okay, I'll just take maybe 5 more minutes. You would not believe this. We've kind of, been interviewing people on this same question. I mean, the questionnaire has been more or less the same. And we have kept this question in order to sort of, figure out how, when we are reimagining education, how are people really thinking of the whole coaching thing that's happening around? And you're totally right. It's, the QE thing, more kids like more humanities and more commerce, and everybody will be jumping on. So but the answer that I have got from more than 60% of the people who responded, that yes, coaching classes are required. And you would be surprised, somebody telling me that coaching classes are actually required for brighter students, because they need to do something else, and they need to be given a fast track, or or for competitive exams. So uh, so the uh, the
Why
interesting
can't we
part
do
is,
that in school? Why
sorry.
don't we plan? Why can't we do that in school? Why don't we plan every single lesson where we don't just take care of the child who needs more or needs more help with a certain concept mastery, but also for the child who's gifted and talented? That
Right.
has to be within. So if we are not, if you're saying that the GNT child actually needs something else, then why are we there standing taking the credit if that child gets an admission to a top college?
Totally, totally. Yeah, yeah. So which is why, this question is very close to us, when we are sort of, saying that, okay, work-life balance, don't bring your work to home, work for 8, 9 hours in a day, get a health, get mental peace, whatever, right? And then there are children who have anyway got 8 hours of day, and then there is like, still more to do, like 3, 4 more hours to go. And that's where, this whole, because there's a competitive exam which is different from what school is being given a box of work that they're supposed to do from just academia, and just CBSE or whatever the boards are from that perspective, and which maybe the comp for the for getting admission to certain colleges does not qualify or is not enough. So there is a big gap, which is, which then takes us to even what you were saying, absolutely saying that, uh, now let's say somebody needs to do engineering, then that child definitely needs to get into a dummy school, because that in itself, that whole curriculum that he needs to cover in order to be a part of the engineering grad program is
Myth
not.
here.
Hmm.
There is a myth here created by a lot of good marketing, by
Yeah.
a lot of
Yes.
institutions benefit from it. I have a whole host of children from this school who did not take any external tuitions, so to speak. They studied just the typical CBSE curriculum, the NCRT that they are supposed to study. And in our school, the curriculum is never linear in any classroom or static. It's something that you just explore. Somebody wants to do something more in a certain area, they explore more. Somebody, and this area may differ for every child. So that freedom is critical within the system. And there are endless children who have easily cracked those IIT exams and so on without any of those external things. And there are children who not really chosen not to go that path, and chosen a different kind of college which they found more interesting, which they found more useful for their thought process. And I think what is important is how are they doing in life? Are they happy?
Yeah,
Are they
totally.
happy,
Yeah.
satisfied with what they're doing? Are they
Yes.
really being able to achieve their goals and
Right.
do something useful with their life? I think that is what
Right.
matters. And as parents and educators, we need to really, really understand that
Right.
from the
Right.
bottom
Right.
of our hearts, not just like, yeah, yeah, that's okay, but you know what?
Right, right, right. Totally. The thing is, when I saw the responses from, various interviews, and some people have sent write-ups also, because not everybody was able to give video interviews. But then, some of those things giving us indicators that, school senior managements also believe that there should be extra education classes, which is required for certain things, and not for, not for school. So that was surprising for us as well. And I think, you know one more thing is, around inclusive campuses. And just because I would say that because GEMS is like a wider footprint, you're present in a lot of countries. So how do you reimagine the inclusive, campuses and classrooms? Because this is something which all of us know in various forms, but we still think that, like, let's say 15% of the world is not normal. And then how do we bring them into the mainstream? Are, as GEMS, what are you doing it, or what are your broad thoughts on how something like that can be embedded?
You're right, 15% of the world, and that's a very, very huge chunk, needs that kind of support. And again, so we did a confluence last year on inclusive education specifically. We have a whole team in the school dedicated for inclusive education. And we have a department for children with special needs and so on. So it's on an everyday basis that we grapple with these. And we have quite a few children, and especially after the pandemic, when children have returned, um, I mean, the 90% to 100% children have now returned to school. It has become even tougher because there is a lot of, in some cases, a lot of learning loss. And in some cases, it isn't learning loss, but actually a case of slow learning or a certain uh, learning difficulty. And for the counselors also, for the observers and the special educators, it has become very tough now to really. So earlier, if we were able to figure out something with the professionals in 3 observations, now it takes a minimum of 6, because we are also giving that kind of time to that child, especially in early childhood. This has become a much more tough scenario right now. But what is important is also to understand that inclusion is not just about children who are born with certain special needs. Inclusion is about, so in most of our schools globally, there are more than children from more than 32 nationalities in
Yeah,
various schools. In
yeah,
India, little less. But still, every child, irrespective of nationality, every child is actually different. Every child is going through some or the other uh, emotional challenge
right,
or social engagement challenge.
right,
Everybody's scenario is very different. The screen itself has added to the challenges, and I'll not say because of education that happened through screens. That was just one aspect of screen time, but screen time as such has become a part of everybody's life on a daily basis, and it needs a lot of thoughtful effort, focused, directed effort to deal with it for all adults as well. So
right,
obviously for and it's not being given that kind of attention. So that is a challenge. Then our world is increasingly becoming more and more complicated, where parents and children are not getting the kind of time together or the quality time together where they're able to, on an everyday basis, grapple with emotional engagement of children. So that has moved that responsibility into school. So inclusion is required in multiple ways at every step of the way. So therefore, the entire team in the school needs to be adequately, sufficiently, and over and again, as part of the continuous process, trained into understanding the requirements, of inclusive education. Just like we do assessments or benchmarking, external and internal assessments for aspects of a child's personality, which are more to do with their understanding of mathematics and language and science and so on. We also do for aspects of emotional intelligence and resilience quotient and so on. So that is embedded into the school system. Plus, there is a process around. It's very important to create processes and systems which everybody understands. When we define an individualized education plan for a child who needs it, or a individualized behavior plan for a child who needs it, we take into account that child's thought process, that parents' thought process, the teacher, the counselor, everybody, the special ed person, everybody comes together and we do it together. It's a collaborative initiative where each one is playing a part, and that then works. This system needs to be very, very deeply, strongly embedded, and it cannot be something that the one can happen in a school with any number of children with one counselor or one special educator, which is like the CBSE requirement. It needs a team. It needs a team of people to really be there. It needs a lot of focused attention from the management. And as I said, just like social emotional needs to be mainstreamed, the minute you mainstream it, believe me, if the child's attention span as such is better, if the child's concentration becomes better and improved and more sustained, the academic achievement will naturally become better. It's
Right.
a natural outcome. So the focus, if you shift it to this, the rest happens as an outcome. So that is
Right.
critical. We look at it that way, then there we are.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Those are wonderful thoughts, and I think you've put it very rightly. And there's a lot of depth in what you just said. And obviously, it is deeper, and it requires a lot more effort. And I think again, the entire sensitization process, if that is happening as a school at a school level, and because that much diversity children can't see, in their families, right? So then it's going to definitely make the child, the as they evolve, it's going to make it different for them. They would look at the issues very differently from yesteryears, right? I just want to take, on that note, say thank you to you for joining us. And, a very, very happy Teachers' Day to you and to your faculty members and to all the children at your school. And we look forward to our continuing engagement with your school now.
Thank you, Deepthi. Lovely talking to you and wish you a very happy Teachers' Day as well. I could hear a school bell in the background.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.